Hello and welcome to Marketing Speak. I'm your host, Stephan Spencer, and today it's my pleasure to have Sam Richter with us. Sam is a National Hall of Fame speaker, named one of the world's top 50 sales keynote speakers and one of the 15 highest rated speakers for virtual events. He's a best-selling author. He delivers his number one rated, dynamic, highly entertaining, and extremely high content keynote presentations and workshop sessions to audiences worldwide. Sam, it's so great to have you on the show.
Hey, I'm really excited to be here. Thank you very much.
First of all, share, if you would, your origin story, how you ended up being a Hall of Fame speaker, not just a regular professional speaker, but how did you end up at the pinnacle of this industry?
Well, thanks for asking. It's actually, going to be fairly relevant to many of our listeners today. I started out in marketing, and I'm actually an introvert by nature. I started out as a copywriter, an advertising copywriter, and then eventually got promoted to become a creative director and had my own firm, and then moved into public relations, working for some pretty large agencies on behalf of some pretty large clients. Moved on to the .com world, but along that way, as you got promoted out of being, my goal in life was to be a copywriter stuck in a closet writing ad copy all day, to moving out, I had to start to talk to people. Well, I got a little bit terrified, and I learned a lot about the internet and how to use and find information. And I realized that when I could find information on others, that allowed me to ask great questions. I ended up selling a lot more. But I was really doing it to make myself feel more confident, to move away from my introvertedness, if that's a word. I knew that if I could find information on other people, it's kind of the Dale Carnegie concept, right? Just learn about other people, care about other people. My introvertedness would melt away. I mean, I was actually excited to meet with people. Well, I got pretty good at what I was doing, and working for some companies that said, hey, you're pretty good at speaking. Could you go out and do seminars on behalf of our organizations? And I would do that. And well, eventually people were like, hey, can we pay you? At that time, pay the company. Sure, we can do that. And hey, do you have a book? No, I don't. So I wrote a book. Didn't feel confident in my own abilities that the book was any good. So before a speech, I'd run over to, at the time it was Kinko's, and print up 500 copies and spiral bind them, print them for $10, sell them for 20. Well, that worked pretty well. So then I got a real book done. Eventually just spun out on my own, and being a perfectionist, I kind of watched myself like a football player would watch game film. Really worked on the craft of speaking, the art of speaking. Pretty good on the business side of speaking, and that's how I got to where I am today.
Well, then, how did you end up getting nominated to the National National Speakers Association
Sure.
Hall of Fame? I guess is what it would be.
Yeah, it's really, I don't know how I got nominated. The process is other people have to hear you and nominate you, and then it's really a vote by existing Speaker Hall of Fame members. There's about, I think, around 250 worldwide. So, although most of them are in the United States, it's the United States Hall of Fame, I guess, but it is a worldwide one. And then there's a pretty stringent, as I understand it, pretty stringent evaluation process. You've got to meet a number of criteria. Obviously, the people who vote, and that's a silent or a hidden, nobody knows who's in charge of voting, but who ends up voting for you, they probably have to have seen you speak, I suppose. And then if you make the cut, it's they announce it, and I think there's usually 2 or 3 every year that make the cut. So it's a huge honor, because many of the people I respect most in the industry, not only for their craft of speaking, but building a speaking business. And there's a huge difference between a speaking business and a speaking lifestyle. A lot of the people I really put up on a pedestal are in the Speaker Hall of Fame. So even being said in the same breath as some of those folks, it's kind of humbling, to be quite honest.
Yeah, I know a few of them. Jeffrey Hazlett, Steve Spangler.
Yeah, I mean,
Sally
Jeffrey's
Hogshead.
amazing. Spangler, every time I work out, I flip on the television, and there's Spangler on TV doing another blowing up something, in teaching people the power of science. I mean, it's just some amazing people in that group.
Yeah, yeah. He was actually a client for many, many years.
Oh, you're kidding?
And
Yeah, he's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah, we helped him get to #1 in Google for keywords like science experiments and science kits and things like that.
Well, we ought to talk. I'd like to be #1 in Google, so we'll figure out how to do that.
Okay, awesome, awesome. So, how do you avoid the pitfalls that many of the folks in the speaking industry fall prey to? For example, the pandemic hit, and a lot of the professional speakers had no work, and
Yeah.
then they were eating ramen noodles for a good year or two, and that seems like putting all your eggs in one basket. Now, I do some professional speaking. I've gotten paid for keynotes and things, but that's not my primary revenue stream. So I had consulting revenue and other forms of revenue to fall back on when the pandemic hit, because I usually speak at, I don't know, a dozen or 2 dozen events a year.
Mhm.
Stopped pretty much everything that was in
Oh,
person
yeah.
for 2 years. I just did a speech a week ago, Genius Network annual event, but that's pretty much the first event that I spoke at in person, or maybe the second in 2 years.
Mhm.
So yeah, how do you avoid these pitfalls? That being one of them. I'm sure you'll share some others.
Well, I think that's the big difference between being a speaker and having a speaking business. So
Hmm.
in business, I've served on a number of boards, and in business, you always have to diversify your revenue stream because there's so many things in life that are just uncontrollable, much less in business. And so many speakers, myself included, have alternative revenue streams. Now, some it might be an online course, some it's a coach. A lot of people, it's coaching, consulting. For me, what I speak about primarily is what's called sales intelligence. So, sum it up real quickly: how to ethically spy on people using the tools you use every day, like Google and social media, but do it in ways that 99% of the planet have no clue how to do. And then once you have the information, how do you ethically use it to benefit others? So
Hmm.
that's really what I speak about, various speeches off of that. And so I've developed a number of tools that automate that. So think of it as like a search engine overlays. So what might take someone 3 to 4 hours to search on their own in LinkedIn or Google or other tools, you can do in less than a second in mine. So I sell those, and for years, you bundle them in with your keynote, and people buy them. So I had revenue coming in, which was nice. But I went from 100 dates on the calendar in, call it, March 2020 to April 2020 having 0 dates on the calendar. That wasn't very comfortable. Now, thankfully, I do enjoy ramen noodles, but it's not particularly how I wanted to spend my life. So the nice thing is I had revenue, and I have a television background. So within 3 weeks, I turned my son's room. He was off in college. He's not thrilled because I've still turned his room into a television production studio. It's a full production studio, multiple cameras, so I do some pretty sophisticated virtual work because I knew that, hey, this is going to be the future. And I better do it now, because a lot of my clients at the time that had booked me said, hey, could you do virtual? We don't want to cancel altogether. Yep. So I would say out of the 100 gigs I had on the calendar, only maybe 10 canceled altogether. The rest either moved in person to some quite frankly, 2023 now. The
Yeah.
international ones have moved to 2023, but many of them have been virtual. And I picked up a lot more business virtually because I do some really cool things virtually. Many speakers do it differently. Everyone's used to the traditional Zoom with PowerPoint. For me, what I wanted to do immediately was try to mimic as best as possible the visual experience someone would see if I'm on stage in front of 5,000 people and there's $1 million setup behind me with the massive screen. So in my virtual presentation, I'll actually have 300 slides in an hour. Now, they're not your typical slides with bullet points. Most of them don't even have words. There might be 50 different videos with 17 different camera angles. It's just try to make it visually immersive, because it's hard to keep people's attention for an hour. So,
Right.
and then where I really had to adapt was, and I'm still learning, is the energy level is different when you're presenting on stage, where you have to be big, you have to be loud, you have to be very, I guess, large with your nonverbals. I would say some of my earlier webinars, I watched them and I was like, why are you yelling at the screen? And so having to learn how to still present like you're on stage, because when I present virtually, I'm standing and moving around, but tone down the energy level for a 5 inch by 5 inch screen.
Right. Right. Especially if you're one of X number of people on the screen at once, and it's kind of like Hollywood Squares on Zoom, and you're one of a panel, or you're one of a set of speakers
Right.
or participants, and everybody's on gallery view. Yeah.
But I guess a high level answer to your question from a business perspective is you can never be satisfied with your own success. So you're always learning and you're always doing new ideas. And, we've done virtual in the past. You have, I'm sure. But hey, now we got to ramp it up. And the other thing is you got to ramp it up, but you got to continually improve, because, if you remember April 2020, just knowing how to click on a Zoom link, that was like, wow, that's really cool. And then by July, it's like, well, you better be able to present a PowerPoint presentation and have your face at the same time. No. So to me, it's like, nope, I've got to go way above and beyond that. And then once I get above and beyond that from the technical perspective, now I got to go back and refine the art, if you will, the art of speaking, the art of delivering content in a virtual format is completely different. So the bottom line is you always have to innovate, and you always have to learn, and never get a big enough ego to think that if you don't do that, you're going to get hurt really bad.
Yeah. Well, having a big ego in any area or discipline is bad news. That comes with a big slap from the universe to let you know that you need to be a bit more humble. Yeah. So how is virtual completely different? Like what are some of the things that you perhaps had to learn the hard way? For example, one very simple one for me was once I had the green screen, I on Zoom would turn on the virtual background, and what I hate is the moving virtual backgrounds. I think those are too distracting. But so I'd pick a nice kind of corporate looking virtual background that was a still image. But then I didn't realize I was supposed to check the little checkbox that says I have a green screen. And so I was really kind of fuzzy, and all I had to do is check the box. It took weeks for me to discover that.
So I think
what are some of yours?
Again, as we just discussed, the big one is how do you present virtually versus presenting on stage. But then you also have to remember that when I'm presenting on stage, I've got a whole team, right? I've got AV people, I've got microphone people, everything's done for me. In my production studio, it's me. And so I had to, frankly, through muscle memory, so I've got two clickers. I advance slides with one hand, and I advance, like I said, 300 different backgrounds, camera angles, all sorts of things with my other hand, while simultaneously making sure, the big thing is you've got to get your light correct, and audio is super important as well. So I probably have 6 different microphones around my house because I kept trying different ones, and finally fell on a lavalier that I'm wearing now. $25 one. Listen, I was willing to spend like $500. Get me a good mic, but finally.
Well, this one is more than that.
Yeah,
this is
I just
Shure
tested
SM7B. I love this one, but
one
what's
you have,
the $25 one?
Yeah, you sound great. You sound wonderful, and hopefully I do too with the lavalier here.
You sound good.
And then post production.
Okay, so what's the brand? Where do we get it?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I wish I remembered it. Let me put on my glasses and maybe I can read this. It says SEVEN OAK, so 7 Oak.
Okay.
There we go, right there. So
cool.
7 oak. And then, the other things, so you get the light right, you get the sound right, but to manage all the things I have, there was really no, especially back in May of 2020, there was no manual because no one was really doing what I was trying to do. So kind of making it up as I went along. So what you're looking at right now, I'm running my camera through 3 different software packages. So hopefully I'm streaming at HD because Zoom and other, now I know the platform we're using actually doesn't compress the video very much, which is awesome. But a lot of them do. So I want to be able to stream at HD, but I have to be able to compress it enough so it will get through the pipe and do that, for lack of a better term. So understanding all that. So again, I've had other speakers say, Sam, how do I replicate your studio? And my answer is, I have no clue, because I did it, but if you were to ask me to do it again, I'd have to just try it until it works. So as I like to say, it's kind of bolted together with duct tape, but it works. And, multiple different software packages I'm using that really aren't supposed to work together, but it works.
Yeah, very cool. So how do you get the PowerPoint or keynote presentation to display in a way that is optimal? So you're not just this tiny little head talking through a big PowerPoint deck. Do you turn off the PowerPoint at different points where you want people to focus on your face, or do you tell them to move the vertical bar so that you and the PowerPoint presentation are the same size? Do you have 2 different windows, one for you, one for the PowerPoint, so they're basically like 2 different people on the Zoom call? Sure. And then you spotlight both of them? I'm curious how you do this.
Yeah, let me click on a couple buttons here, see if I wasn't prepared for this, so it's not going to be as slick as if I was prepared in doing it. But so for example, I'm going to start out my presentation. Let's go to the title slide here. I'll kind of show you what this looks like. Let's see if I can get this to work. Come on, Sam. Maybe not be able to do it without all my... Let's see if I do it that way. So, I can have different backgrounds. And why isn't this working? Well, you can kind of see what I'm trying to do. There we go.
It's really cool, though, because first, before you switch to full screen with your PowerPoint behind you, I saw it was displaying on the TV above the fireplace. Right. That was super cool.
Yeah, so I'm doing all those kinds of things. If you just give me a second here, I'm going to log in. I'm going to grab my other, hopefully this will work now. Okay, so now I'm in this studio. And so for my presentation, I might start out. Now, usually, again, I'm standing. I'm not sitting. But, I might start out something like this. So I've got some animation behind me. So that's the title slide. Cool. And then, I'll go over here. And then I'll, maybe I'll put myself down here, make it a little bit smaller, go to let's go to a different slide here. Let's see. So I might go here.
This is amazing. I love this.
Oh, thanks.
So if you're only listening, you're not watching the video. What's happening here is he switched studios.
Right.
So then there was a brick background, and then there's this animation of a TV coming down from the ceiling and displaying his PowerPoint presentation. And then it went full screen to no background of brick, but just the PowerPoint, and then he went small and into the corner. This is so cool. I'm really impressed.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. So and then what I do is see if I can get this to work. I'm doing it here. Well, so then every slide and everything I say is timed with a different background. So for example, when I talk about big data, I'm using visuals to support the data. So you said you don't particularly like backgrounds with moving images, but it works really well when I'm talking about big data to have that background up, right? Or maybe I change it to that. But every slide is really timed to a different background, to a different image, depending on what I'm doing. And then I'll change it based on what slide I'm on, what I'm talking about. And so that was probably the hardest part is knowing, when should I be on which background, and being able to muscle memory, because I'm flipping slides with my right hand, flipping camera angles with the left hand, and making it a little bit crazy. So, but you got to do that. You got to have it visually interesting, because I know when I watch a Zoom presentation, I don't like it when it's, the PowerPoint slide goes up and I get to read the bullet points and there's a little talking head in the background. Make it cool. Do something cool. Have fun with it. So.
Yeah, I like it. That's really, really neat. And do you teach clients, like coaching clients, or like a online course on this stuff, so that other speakers can up-level their virtual game as well?
Not really. I've been asked by some people. I've done some talks at different speaking chapters. But the challenge is again, from a technical perspective, I can tell you kind of what I did, but I don't think I could teach you to replicate it. From an art perspective, I could. From a how do you present virtually? What should you think about when you're presenting virtually that you don't have to think about when you're presenting in person? When I'm presenting in person, there's a massive screen behind me, usually a couple more on the sides. I've got a confidence monitor in front of me. I can see exactly what I'm talking about. But how do you do that? And especially with my ADHD crazy brain, I've got 4 monitors going at the same time, one of them monitoring what the live person is seeing, because there's always a half a second delay, and making sure that my timing is perfect, because there are slides that I need the visual to show up behind me at the exact right amount, at the exact perfect time. So what's crazy is what I'm seeing in my video monitor might be a half a second off to what the viewer is seeing. So I need to present to what the viewer is seeing. So even figuring that out, those are the things I can teach people. The technical thing, I can probably tell you what software I used, how I put it together. Again, if I sat in front of your computer, I could do it, but I'm not sure I could tell you how to do it.
Yeah. Even just understanding the perspective of the person that you're speaking to is so critically important. If you're kind of with your hands drawing an up and to the right graph, you're going from left to right, they're actually seeing it reversed.
Exactly.
So that's the wrong direction.
Exactly.
So you want to think in terms of from their perspective, see it through their eyes.
Yep. And even knowing, if I want to point to something on the screen, even though the screen, it might be screen right, I've got to go this way, or I've got to go, hey, there's my fireplace back there, rather than there's my fireplace back there. So knowing that is like I said, and it only comes through screwing up a few times.
Yep. That's cool, though. I'm really impressed. Okay, so let's talk about sales and having kind of the inside scoop on the prospect before you show up in the meeting. So you have this book called "Take the Cold Out of Cold Calling: Web Search Secrets." And by the way, you might want to check out my book. I should check out yours for sure. But my book is called Google Power Search.
Oh, cool.
I just came out with the 3rd edition. There's so many little ninja tricks to find stuff in Google, like Forrester research reports that normally cost thousands of dollars, with just, file type :PDF, and then a few key phrases that are typically only found in Forrester reports, like EndNotes or Grapevine, things like that. And also you can find things that are normally confidential, like business plans and marketing plans, just by doing some clever filtering of the search results, just adding some additional search operators. So anyways, I'm curious to hear some of your ninja tactics for getting the inside scoop on your prospect.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of what you talked about, and there are some I've kind of invented that aren't supposed to work, but they do, that I talk about. Now, by the way, don't go out and buy my book. It's old. So the last time I updated it was 2015. As you know, the world gets updated, technology's updated. And so what I've done is I've really taken a lot of the techniques that I teach and embedded them into different custom search resources. So that's kind of the intel engines we talked about earlier. But some of the techniques, like you just said, it's how do you find. So, for example, in sales, one of the concepts I talk about is what's called sales triggers. A sales trigger is a disruption that's going on in another person's world where they might want to hear from you today. So, for example, let's say you sell commercial insurance. If I got a list of everybody in Dallas, of every company owner, every CEO in Dallas, and I did enough emails, I did enough direct mail, I did enough phone calls, mathematically, I'll stumble across a CEO who's looking to get a new commercial policy for their company. And if you do it enough, you make a good living. A sales trigger, however, is what's going on in somebody else's world where they actually want to take your call today. And so, for example, that might be a new executive was hired. Maybe it was a company that just received funding. They just received $100 million. Well, their insurance needs have changed. They announced that they're going to be expanding, remodeling. They're going through a merger or acquisition. A company just moved to your community. All of those would be a disruption in the company's life where something's going on where there's a high likelihood that they need new insurance. Now, especially if you have expertise in, say, working with entrepreneurial startups who just received a lot of money, now you can call those folks, introduce yourself, align your solutions with what they care about, and you're going to have a much higher likelihood of success. So how do you find sales triggers? Well, it's like you were talking about earlier. It's Boolean logic. Boolean is George Boole, 19th century mathematician, who created different algorithms that allow you to go in and find, in what we're talking about, information. So it could be the plus sign, the minus sign, ors, quotation marks, parentheses, and other terms as well. The reason I built the Intel engine is Google limits itself to 32 Boolean algorithms. Engines like LinkedIn, many engines use Boolean as well in their search. Might be a little bit different how they do it, but they do it, and might only limit itself to 10 words. So the reason I built the Intel engines is make it really simple. So in my speech, I kind of, like I say, I pull back the curtain on the Wizard of Oz. I'll teach you complex Boolean, but then I give you the Wizard of Oz. The Wizard of Oz is my Intel engines. Now, what's different there is within those I can do, because I'm kind of doing multiple searches simultaneously, I can do up to, some of my searches have 300, 500, 600 word Boolean algorithms running simultaneously to find the information. So I can even do better than Google. It still returns in a Google result. I'm not scraping anything. And so, you're still going to get your Google ads and those kinds of things, but it's just doing a much more laser focused and refined search.
Gotcha. Yeah. There's a lot of misconceptions around which operators work, even in the SEO industry, where people are supposed to be on the top of what works and what doesn't, and kind of reverse engineering things. Like the parentheses don't actually do anything when you put them into a Google search.
Except if you're doing a 30-word Boolean equation, then they will. Now, most humans would never do that, right? But if I'm searching for 15 ors, then nesting them within parens might be really important. But again, you're never going to do that manually. So you are 100% correct in that the traditional Google search parentheses aren't going to work.
Now, I've also seen Google take away a lot of functionality because they think that we don't need that anymore, like the tilde operator.
Which was great.
Synonyms.
Yeah.
I love that. Now it's gone.
Yeah. No, I used to love the tilde. Or some that they do promote, just don't work very well. So, they launched a year and a half ago, or maybe it's a couple of years ago now, they launched the ability to type in before : and then you could type in a date. And your results would be results before that date. It technically works, but it doesn't work very well. So, because, when I test different Boolean equations, if you will, or Boolean terms, search ability algorithms, I have some standards that I know what the results should be if I do it correctly. And sometimes they just don't work, or sometimes they do, and that's the problem. And that's why I had 15 editions of my book, or 12 editions of my book, because everything was constantly changing. So that's when I moved everything online. So I can, because I change it every single day. I change something.
So this is at intelengine.com, but without the E.
Right. It's Intel,
engine.
INTEL, engine, NGIN.com, Intel Engine.
Right. And how long have you had this?
I've had it about 2 years.
Site up? Cool.
Here, I'll go on in.
So it looks like you have a whole range of different options depending on the use case, like for HR and recruiting, for financial advisors.
Yeah.
For
so everyone's a little bit different. So basically what happens is when I speak in an industry, I'll go build them a custom engine for their company. So there's a lot in my catalog. There's a lot that I have that aren't on my catalog. So I typically will build them custom for a company. And then if it's appropriate, I'll take the parts out that are unique to the company and build an industry version.
Yeah, that's cool. I like it. All right. So if our listener or viewer wants to get on to Intel engines and perhaps sign up for the premium engine or anything like that, do you have a special offer or any recommended place for them to start, like with one particular engine?
Yeah, I think, if they went to, and here, I'll just put this up on the screen here so you can kind of see it, and then even see the you can see the web address up there, intelengine.com. If anybody goes and orders, so they order, they click on the link, and then they, so for example, if they wanted the financial advisor one, click on financial advisors, become a member today. If I go in here, choose a pricing option, let's do the 37 or 39 a month, I think is what that was. The coupon code, and of course I'm already logged in, but the coupon code would be POD25, POD25. So let me just put that up here really quick. Let's see if I can replicate that page. So intelengine.com and coupon code POD 25. Life. There, how's that?
Awesome.
So I'll move that. There we go.
All right, perfect. So we got POD25 as the coupon code for intelengine.com. And also, I'm curious to hear if people want to learn speaking from you. Do you have like, what do you offer in terms of coaching or courses or anything that convey what you know about everything from doing sales keynotes to going from an introvert to an extrovert in terms of when you're on stage and so forth, all the amazing knowledge that you have accumulated and wisdom that you have accumulated since you started? Is that something that is available through coaching or anything like that?
Yeah, actually, I've had so many people ask for that, that I am going to be rolling out. It's not going to be like a formal coaching. It's more, we sit and talk business ideas. You share with me your challenges, and I'm pretty good at coming up with very creative ideas. Or if I don't know, I know a lot of people. And so I'll be rolling out something. But in the time being, people can just go to my website and contact me. But I'm pretty easy to find. It's just Sam Richter, SamRichter.com, samrichter.com. Click on the contact button. You'll get my direct email, my direct phone, and feel free to reach out to anybody, and happy to have conversations with people and help in any way that I can.
Awesome. Thanks. And so I'm curious to hear if you have applied some of your copywriting expertise over the years to what you do on
Well,
stages
that's a
now.
great question. I think so, because I think, copywriting, especially for advertising, so for example, when you're writing a headline, it needs to be between 3 and 7 words. So I really love a quote by Mark Twain. I'll screw it up, but it's something along the lines of, I wish I had more time to make my writing shorter, something like that, because that's really hard
Yeah,
to
yeah.
do. It's easy to write long copy. It's easy to write a long speech. It's really hard when someone says, well, Sam, and this has happened before, it's happened to all speakers, right? You prepare your hour-long speech, but the CEO who did the introduction went 20 minutes instead of 3. And so the event planner whispers in your ear, hey, we still need you off the stage by noon because we're all getting on a boat or something. And so the ability to take your thoughts and ideas and compress them, that comes from copywriting. You oftentimes will write long copy, or when I was doing headline writing, right, you do your copy and you would put hundreds upon hundreds of ideas on a legal pad, and then some of those actually get taped up on the wall that are good, and then you look at those and you refine those. And anybody can be creative. It's, can you then be creative and take those concepts and get it into for example, a 30-second radio ad, or a 30-second television ad, or a 7-word headline in a one visual? Can you convey those messages? So I think a lot of what I did in advertising and copywriting has transferred into my day job, if you will, now, even to creating, thinking that way when I'm creating search technologies, thinking that way when I'm, as we were talking about earlier, well, how am I going to craft an hour-long presentation? What should visually that look like? So one of the things we learn in advertising is you don't have an ad that says, say screw, see screw. What do I mean by that? Is your headline shouldn't say, we've got a lot of great nuts and bolts at our hardware store, and then you show a picture of a nut and bolt. Why do that? So you should say, we've got, and just off the top of my head, so it's probably going to be a bad ad, but we've got, we at our hardware store, we make connections. And then you have a nut and a bolt. You see kind of the play on words. And so it would be very similar to a presentation, whether that's in person or whether that's virtually. I don't want to have a slide with bullet points. It's like, because if I have a slide with bullet points, why do you need me? Just go get the slide deck and read the bullet points. So everything that is on my slides, for the most part, is going to be something that visually supports the message I'm trying to convey. Whether that's like I showed you earlier, when I talk about big data, I want big data behind me. So everyone, oh, I see what he's talking about, the zeros and the ones flying around, or something. I want it to convey what I'm talking about, but visually support it, not just have a bunch of bullet points that are repeating what I'm saying.
Right. And the more of a metaphor that you convey versus being very literal with the image, I think the better it captures the attention and creates curiosity and intrigue and excitement within the audience. So, for example, if I'm going to teach on social proof, I might have a background of a guy walking into a bar and there are 5 supermodels surrounding him, walking in with him. And that, like, and when I talk about how social proof means that you come pre-selected, that you don't have to burn a bunch of calories trying to figure out, is this guy or gal legit and their technology and their company legit. They get the metaphor because of the visual.
Here's
So
a perfect example of that. So in
fun.
my presentation, at the beginning, near the beginning, I talk about, hey, in the next hour, I'm going to teach you how to find information using the tools you use every day, like Google, social media. And I'll say, but that's the how. I'm going to teach you how to do things in ways that 99% of the planet has no clue how to do. And then I go to this slide. But it's the why that's most important. Why are we here? So for those who are not watching but listening, what I have is a huge spotlight behind me. And then I say this. The reason why we're here is your prospects, your existing customers, are amazingly passionate about one thing. What is it? It's themselves. And so I don't say, say screw would be, And as you can see, I've got a spotlight shining on me. People are passionate about shining the light on themselves. No, I don't say that, but I visually represent that. So, it probably most people don't in the audience, probably nobody in the audience picks up on that consciously, but they pick up on it subconsciously. So I think that's kind of what you were talking about, is that metaphor of, hey, I'm going to shine the light on you. Well, in my presentation, I literally shine the light on me. It looks like I'm shining the light on me, but I'm talking about what's important to a prospect, which is themselves. So that would be kind of an example of how one might do what we were just talking about.
Yeah, great example. Now, what would be a standout example of let's say a prospect meeting or sales presentation that you gave to a prospect that just you came up with something that was just so amazing, maybe improvised something, or you figured something out on the fly, and now you're teaching that to
Sure,
everybody.
I'll use an example that I use in some of my presentations. So one of the things I talk about is the first words out of your mouth in any communication, LinkedIn communication, email, phone call, certainly in person, needs to be about the other person. So spend 5 minutes before the meeting. I have a concept called the 3x5. Spend 3 minutes trying to find 5 pieces of information, or 5 minutes trying to find 3 pieces of information. So I've got a meeting with a huge prospect. I'd love to do business with them. They're a Fortune 10 company. And I find out, I do some searching on my mobile device 5 minutes before the meeting, and I find out that they were just named Best Places to Work by Fortune magazine. So most meetings start out, if you haven't done your homework, hey, tell me a little bit about your company. How big are you guys? What keeps you up at night? So when it comes,
Yeah, or even just the more like mundane and kind of just required chit chat of, where are you based?
exactly.
How's the weather there? Like, oh, boring.
So my prospect reaches out his hand. Sam, so nice to meet you. And I said, hey, before we start, congratulations. What are you talking about? I said, didn't you get the news? What news? Well, you guys were just named Best Places to Work by Fortune magazine. A huge smile comes to his face. And, really, when did that happen? Oh, 18 minutes ago, I just Googled you. But what happened there then is, for the next 20 minutes, that individual, my prospect, talked about themselves, because I asked a really good question. Hey, what makes this such a great place to work? A very simple question. Out of context, it would have been weird. But in context, for 20 minutes, my prospect talked about what makes this such a great place to work. After about 20 minutes, he looked at me and he said, Sam, I'm so sorry. I've been doing all the talking. Can you tell me a little bit about you and how you might be able to help us? And that's really our goal in sales, is to tell stories. I don't like to sell anything, quite frankly. I'm not even a good salesperson. People are like, what are you talking about? You teach sales. No, I'm not a good salesperson. I'm a good storyteller. And so what I try to find out is, what does the other person care about? And then I can share stories of how I've helped other people in similar situations achieve their goals more profitably, efficiently, effectively than they might be able to do on their own. Well, fast forward, not only did I close the deal, that gentleman has introduced me to so many people. It's represented, frankly, millions of dollars in business over the years. And I asked him one day, I said, hey, did that work? What worked? That story, when I told you Best Places to Work. He said, Sam, not only did it work, it's the only reason I hired you. So I said, why is that? He said, listen,
Wow.
This guy was the number 2 guy at this massive corporation. The number 2 guy, I get calls from speakers like you all the time. Sometimes their agents are agents for presidents of the United States, or famous rock stars, or famous athletes. He said, I knew immediately I wanted to work with you. I said, really? How come? He said, because in my entire career, you're the first person who ever bothered to care.
Hmm.
And
Yeah. What's the old adage that
nobody cares how
in
much you
order to
know.
be
Yeah.
interesting?
Is that the one?
Oh, you share yours, but I'll share
Yeah.
mine first, which is, if you want to be
Be
interesting,
interested.
be interested.
Yep. That's how I close my presentation. You got to, I have a little twist on that. I say it's no longer enough to be interesting. So interesting is your marketing. Of course you have to be interesting. You've got to have a good LinkedIn profile. You've got to be posting. You've got to have good marketing. You've got to show up on Google, right? Spangler, you got to show up on Google. But once you're interesting, that just gets you in the maybe pile. The maybe pile is you're one of three. Once you're in the maybe pile, everybody's equal. And so how do you break through? You have to be interested in what the other person cares about. And that's where I use a Teddy Roosevelt quote. Other speakers have borrowed it, by the way, but it's a Teddy Roosevelt quote. Nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. Now, Teddy might have stolen that from somebody I don't know, but there was no internet back then to track it. So,
yeah. And a related adage here to what you were saying is facts tell, stories sell.
Yeah, I think that's right. Facts tell and stories sell. Because again, if we go into a meeting with the concept, or frankly, any conversation with the concept that the other person really doesn't care about you, but they care about themselves, well, how do we figure out what they care about? Dr. Tony Alessandra has a great book. It's called The Platinum Rule. And I actually call it, I say I'm going to do some Tony Alessandra Platinum Rule research. What's the Platinum Rule? Well, the golden rule is what? Do unto others as they'd like to have it done unto themselves. And from a moral perspective, that keeps us a pretty good world, right? I don't want to be lied to. I'm not going to lie to you. But from a sales perspective, it's kind of arrogant. Well, just because I would want it that way, does that mean that you'll want it that way? No. So Dr. Alessandra says that the Platinum Rule, a little bit higher than the golden rule, it's do unto others as they would like it done unto themselves. I translate that as to figure out what the other person wants, tell them, show them, share them stories on how you can help them get it.
Yeah. So the golden rule, do unto others as you would want them to do
Right.
unto you, assumes that we're all wanting
That's
the same
exactly
things,
right.
But we don't.
That's exactly right. And frankly, that works in any relationship, right? So take out my wife to dinner tonight. Well, golden rule says we're going to Snuffy's because I love the Butterburger and I love a good strawberry malt. Now, my wife doesn't want that. She wants to go out for a great salad or Italian or salmon. So, hey, I practiced the golden rule. We went to Snuffy's. That's where I would want to go. No, my wife says, well, let's go out for salmon. So, we all practice the Platinum Rule. We just need to be conscious of that in sales as well. Just because I think my search engines are the greatest thing in the world, and my search engines have incredibly powerful features, I've got to figure out, of the 30 features in my search engine, what's the actual one or two that you might care about? Because if I talk about the one that I think is really cool, hopefully I get lucky. I've got a 1 in 30 chance of getting lucky, right? Because I've got 30 features in there. But let's figure out what you want, and then I'll focus on that one. And what you want might be my least favorite feature, but that's the one we'll talk about.
Yeah. So what do you think marketers who are listening or viewing this right now would consider the most important or most wanted feature for, researching prospects?
Well, I think there's a couple. The first one is figuring out, let's assume that a good marketer already has some people call it their avatar or their ideal client or ideal customer profile. Well, how do you find them? So, for example, if you said to me, well, my ideal customer profile is human resources managers at large companies. Great. Well, I'm sure all of people watching, listening today are smart enough to go into LinkedIn and they know how to type human resources 3M. Or you and I would teach them how to do it, put human resources in quotes, 3M, go up to the filter tab, make sure 3M is the existing title, otherwise you're going to get past employees. Well, guess what? They're all going to miss anybody who doesn't have human resources. They have HR. Now, as we talked about earlier, or in all uppercase, well, you know how to go into LinkedIn and type in human resources in quotes, or in all uppercase, HR, 3M job title, company. That's great. But you're also going to miss anybody that has the word talent. Or HR people use cutesy words now, like I'm head of people, I'm head of talent, I'm employee engagement officer, I'm in charge of benefits. So they have weird terms in their job titles. And if all you know how to do, even if you knew Boolean, is go in and type in human resources, you're going to miss all those people. So the manual way is where I kind of, like I say, I'm going to pull back the curtain on the Wizard of Oz. I'll teach you how to use quotation marks, ors, and all uppercase and separate those out. Now, LinkedIn will only allow you to use a couple of ors unless you know some specific techniques. And again, that's where the parentheses can come in. But my search engine, on just that example alone, will run, I think on that one, about 30 simultaneous searches on all the different synonyms of human resources. And then overlay that. Well, you're looking for, we're looking for decision makers in human resources. So is that vice president? Yeah, it's vice president. Okay. So human resources or vice president in quotes, human resources in quotes. Well, guess what? You're now going to miss SVP. You're going to miss VP. You're going to miss AVP. You're going to miss EVP. So now you have to simultaneously search those. So add another 15 queries on top of the HR one. So that would be an example of, long-winded way of saying, okay, you're looking for so how I would sell that to you, if you will. You might tell me, hey, Sam, my ideal customer profile is senior level human resources people at large companies. So I might say, well, how do you do that now? You'll say, well, I go into LinkedIn and I search for human resources. I said, well, what if you miss all the HR people? I hadn't thought of that. What if you miss all the talent people? What do you mean talent people? People that have the word talent in their job title. I hadn't thought of that. What if I could show you a tool that would search all of those synonyms in less than a second? Hey, that'd be pretty neat. So that would be an example of figuring out. Now, marketers, so it's really I think where marketing is going is figuring out how to get to the right person, then with the right message. So when we talk about marketing, there's obviously branding, but with the internet and with so many tools available to us through social media, and I'm not talking about, doing Google ad tracking, or I'm not talking about doing a retargeting. What I'm talking about is really understanding what somebody might care about, what's going on in their world, like that sales trigger. So I like to say almost that's like a psychographic. So a demographic is the job title, the type of company, the industry. A psychographic is what's going on in their world where they might want to take your call today. So using that earlier example, hey, I sell insurance. Well, great. I can get you a list of every CEO in Dallas. Would that be helpful? Yeah, that would be amazing. Thank you. We could then target our email messages. We could even use that for retargeting in social media. Yeah, but what if I could get you the 15 who just told us yesterday that they're probably going to be in need for new commercial insurance? Well, what do you mean they told you? Well, they didn't come out right and say that I'm looking to buy new insurance, but they said we're going to be hiring 300 new people. If somebody's hiring 300 people, do they need new insurance? Yes, they do. Okay, let me show you the 3 CEOs yesterday in Dallas who told us that they're going on a massive hiring spree. So that's where I think they can use, marketers can use what I teach and the tools that I develop to find those opportunities and laser focus their marketing. Super long answer to a very easy and short question, so I apologize for that.
Okay, fun little super quick last question. What's the funniest or strangest job title you've ever come across? And for me, it was Director of Chaos. I thought that was clever and cute. But what's your favorite?
I've seen some. I can't remember any offhand, but things like that, Director of Chaos, or actually, there's a speaker. I don't know if this is his job title. I think it is. I think it's Director of Fun. So Director of Fun would be a good one.
That is good. Awesome. So again, your websites are samrichter.com and Intel.
Yeah, Intel Engine with the
INTEL Engine without the E. Yeah, NGIN.com. And then the coupon code is POD25.
Yeah, I'll put that up again here real quick. So IntelEngine.com and POD25 for 25% off for life.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sam. This was fun and enlightening and inspiring too. You're just doing an amazing job out there in the physical world and the virtual world, inspiring people from stages. So thank you for that. And thank you, listener. We'll catch you on the next episode. I'm your host,
Thank you.
Stephan Spencer,
Appreciate
signing
it
off.
very much.